Good morning, everyone. I'm Nikki Rensky, the Executive Director of the Women's Service Line at the Christ Hospital, and today's program is part of a new partnership kickoff with the Wise Wellness Guild, which is a female-owned startup here in Cincinnati, designed to connect people to dynamic wellness resources, just like we're doing today. So we all work for a healthcare organization built to serve the needs of others. And I think we recognize how critical our role in the community is right now in terms of providing the exceptional healthcare that we do. But needs expand beyond the traditional aspects of physical health now more than ever into areas like mental, emotional, and social health. And that's really where WISE steps in. Our shared mission with WISE is to take a more comprehensive approach to whole self wellness, to reduce burnout, to help increase connectivity, and just to improve overall well-being. And we want to use our reach as a healthcare system and our brand reputation to help connect to the benefits of WISE. And in turn, WISE can help us improve physical health by connecting to their community with the healthcare information, the providers, and the resources that we provide. So thank you all for taking time today to invest in yourself and learn more about our partnership. I think that meeting our own wellness needs is so important for our ability to care for others and to lead others right now. So with that, I would like to introduce founder and CEO of Wise Wellness Guild, Stevie Carr. Stevie is a P&G alum. She's a local Cincinnati girl. She has worked to bring female empowerment to the forefront of brands like Always and CoverGirl. And she's also spent time at UC Health as a brand director, so she really has a good understanding of our world. And her experience in the corporate world has led to her interest in the burnout epidemic, which is really the catalyst behind the creation of the Wise Wellness Guild. So I'm excited to have her with us here today. Hi, Stevie.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I am so pleased to be here with you today. I know that there are a million distractions out in the world right now, and the work that you do is so important. I want to reinforce to Nikki that I don't want you to take today as being something that you should feel guilty or selfish about. This investment in you and yourself is an investment in your resilience and your ability to invest in others. And I am very proud of you for acknowledging that and owning that and taking this time to really think about that. As Nikki mentioned, I'm a born and raised Cincinnatian from here, and I'm such a fan of the Christ Hospital Health Network. It is my hospital system of choice, and as a person who has experienced cancer, a person that has really needed women's services, this is the hospital system that I trust and that my family has trusted for years. Mm-hmm. When I think about how we are stepping into our partnership and really looking at a comprehensive way that we integrate all aspects of wellness, this is so much a part of the dialogue and conversation that is really necessary to continue to support women in the workforce, as well as being able to support our families so they know how to support us. It's really incredible that 865,000 women voluntarily left the workforce last month alone. The downstream impact to the economy is incredible, but I think that for me, the piece that just is this journey that started 5 years ago is just now really at an all-time crisis, which is understanding that if we don't help women understand that they have a choice, that they don't have to keep living the way that they're living and keep running ourselves ragged, putting ourselves in positions of where we aren't in control of how we're spending our time and energy, that we will burn out. And I can speak to that firsthand. And my experience with my son, I knew going into it about trying to, be a CEO in my career, also being a CEO of my life. I felt like the two were pitted against each other. And I think that today you're going to find that I didn't really know and understand what my career was supposed to do for my whole self wellness and what my life was supposed to do to enhance my career, and how it really is just all spaghetti. It's all supposed to reinforce each other into this one really strong version of yourself. And I just wanted to start by saying, before I introduce Lauris Woolford, who you will have the pleasure of spending the next hour and a half or so with, is just a special thank you to Nikki for being an incredible partner in this, and to Dr. Gina Macarone, who congratulations for being a top doc and for leaning into your values and your vision and purpose. But in seeing the opportunity in this partnership, I think that as we've been on this journey, it has been nothing short of amazing to see what we can do when we really do come together and partner as women and solve problems. So I just want to reinforce that this partnership has just been outstanding and amazing. So one of the things that when I think about Lauris Woolford, she and Gina are two of our founding members of Wise Wellness Guild. And when I met Lauris, I didn't really understand and know a lot about myself. I thought I did. And Lauris, the story goes, we met at a first watch and she pushed me on what my values were. And I gave all the things that made me who I was as a former P&G employee, high achieving, high performing woman. Nowhere in there was wellness, and nowhere in there was anything about my family. And that's not true. But that's the life I was living. And I was really out of sync with living a life that really reinforced my values so I could achieve what it is that really fills me up. And when I got in alignment with that, it was amazing. I felt like I was stuck and living a life of friction. But as we stepped into this relationship, and Lauris became my angel coach, as I call her, really just somebody that came into my life at the perfect time. It's amazing how it's not bumpy. Okay. I'll say that life is bumpy and crazy. This week especially has been wild. But you feel like you're in the flow. And I think that there's a lot of you here today that maybe, I hope that today inspires you, and that you really do feel like you've got something that you can look to say, how can I start to live a life that allows for me to consciously connect with myself? A little bit of the rules of the road for today before I kick it over to Lauris. If you have anything that you want to contribute, that you want to say, please go ahead and put it into the chat. This is supposed to be a highly engaging day. I encourage that if you do have something that you want to come off of mute and come into video, absolutely. Yeah. Like, this is not supposed to be an education session today. This is supposed to be a place for dialogue and curious conversation. That is the gist of this, is like, let's start to take ourselves and be a little bit vulnerable so that way others can learn from our vulnerability. Okay, so without further ado, I will introduce to you Lauris Woolford, an incredible leader in this, not only in this community here in Cincinnati, Ohio, but across the country. Lauris has over 33 years of experience. She was formerly Executive Vice President at Fifth Third Bank, where she really led the vision in charge for all things organizational leadership and development. Her I guess God-given talent is in really catalyzing people to be the best version of themselves through finding how they can take ownership and accountability over their own personal leadership. But what I would say is that I've really found in her is to be specifically with women, just really being able to help them find their path, and really by looking at themselves with self-awareness, with empathy, having the emotional intelligence and skills. Her experience in working with Case Western and really leading at Xavier University has led to her becoming one of the most sought after executive coaches here in the country. And I'm just so proud to say she is the Wise executive leadership coach in residence for us, and all things amazing woman. Lauris Woolford, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, well, gosh, I hope I can only live up to half of that, Stevie. And Nikki, thank you so much. And I love seeing Janet, and I love seeing Gina. And Gina, have to look how nice my skin looks today. So, first of all, Christ Hospital is my hospital. I gave birth to both of my daughters there. Fortunately, I haven't had to go in too many other times except for that, but all of my doctors are associated with Christ Hospital. So I want to thank you for what you do. And you know, you can't watch the world news, you can't pick up the Times, you can't pick up anything knowing what this country is going through, something I've never lived through in my entire life. And the exhaustion and the self-sacrifice is not going unnoticed. So I just want to thank everybody at Christ Hospital and all your affiliations and all your associations from the bottom of my heart for everything that you're doing, because so many of us cannot do what you do. We try to do it on our own way, but we just can't do what you do. So that's first of all, I want to really thank you. And one thing I want to let you know is that, you know, I've been in corporations like for 35 years. So I'm a practitioner. You know, I did get my master's up at Case Western about 11 years ago, and that it was all in positive development and change, and which gave me really the impetus to then start my own coaching business. So I've had that for about 6 years. I really focus on 3 primary things. I focus on corporate education, leadership development for C-suite leaders. I love seeing some of the men that are on here today because I have spent an enormous amount of time coaching leaders to be successful, transition coaching, people that come in new to organizations. And then I also teach at Xavier, the Leadership Center, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, things like that, a great affiliation with Case Western. And my most recent, which speaks to my heart, is with Stevie at Wise Wellness. It was like coming home. I have 2 daughters, one in her 30s and 40s, and all their girlfriends. I've always been like Mama Lauris for the career conversations. And so when I met up with Stevie and started doing coaching circles and one-on-one coaching, and it's just like, it speaks to my heart. So today speaks to my heart because you're my hospital and you need renewal. You need someone to take care of you as you try to take care of so many others of us in the community. So we call this consciously connecting with yourself. So the first thing I would say is that conscious, it's intentional. It's being very open-minded and very self-aware of who you are and what you need. And one of the things that happened when I was going through my master's up at Case, I had this professor and we started spending time working on our ideal self and to figure out what type of life you really want to have, not your ought self that maybe your parents or your managers or people told you, or your should self that people tell you you should do this, you ought to do this, but your ideal self. Well, one of the first steps you have to know about anything of yourself in your career is, what do you value? Now, I know every single one of you has values out there. We all have values, but I gotta be honest with you. Well, I was 55 when I did this. No one had ever asked me to articulate my values. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do that with me this morning. And what do you value the most? What principles really define who you are? And what beliefs and priorities, they guide your behaviors, it guides your decisions, it's where you spend your time, it's where you spend your energy, it's where you spend your resources. So think of it as like your guiding North Star, okay? So it's your guiding North Star. What do you really stand for? And when you do this, these are things that you cease to exist to be who you are if they're not a part of you. Okay, so like these are things that are just make you up. So I'm going to ask you some questions. So you might want to just jot down if something rings your bell, or if you think, here are my values. I know what my values are. So in order to be of service for others, to do all you do, you got to start with you. So for example, are you guided by achievement? success, teamwork, responsibility. Those are all values. Are you guided by love, care, your faith, family happiness, friendship? Or maybe are you guided by financial security, freedom, independence, a good life? There's many, many, many values that are out there. I know when I did this, I came up with my 5 values, and I'll just share with you. Mine are love, family happiness, friendship, freedom, and health. That's what I'm guided by. And let me tell you, people ask me, will your values change? Yes, your values will change. Some might never change. But if I had done this when I was divorced, raising 2 daughters, and I was in my 30s or 40s, financial security would have been one of my values. Okay, without a doubt. And maybe achievement would have been one of my values. I think friendship, family happiness would have been there for my whole life. But some of my other things, and health probably wouldn't have been until I got older. So your values will change. So what I'd like you to do in the chat room for a minute is write down 1 or 2 values that you know for sure resonate with you at this time period in your life. What are 1 or 2 things that really are your North Star that define who you are? And there are no rights, there are no wrongs, there are no oughts, there are no shoulds. So I'm seeing things like faith and family and serving others, faith and family health, financial, serving others, connecting, responsibility, independence, making a difference, relationships, achievement. Yeah, these are wonderful, you guys. These are, these can be your North Star. And let me tell you, maybe I'm a little bit of a slow learner, but let me tell you why this was so eye-opening for me. When I did this, I was thinking, okay, family happiness, for example, being a single mom, raising my 2 girls, they mean everything to me. And it's why I had opportunities when my one company went bankrupt and one company was bought by another one, why I never left Cincinnati. I had an ex-husband, I had my mother-in-law, I had my mother, I'm an only child, I have friends. And so that value of family happiness, keeping my girls connected with our extended family, drove career decisions for me. That's one example of how I used it as a North Star. Okay. Also, when I retired from Fifth Third 6 years ago, I rented an apartment in Chicago because one of my daughters lives in Chicago. And if family happiness is really one of my top values, then I wanted to spend 50% of my time in Cincinnati with my daughter and my 2 grandsons, and 50% of my time in Chicago. I'm just giving you examples of how I personally put my values at work. And they have now guided so many decisions that I make on a basis. So that's like when Stevie and I first met, and she was telling me about Wise Wellness and everything. And I was like, okay, this is exciting. I'm so excited, but I got to know more about you. And I want to know what guides you, what is most important for you. And I will say, not to Patrick's, laughter, but we did have to admit when Patrick and her beautiful son Lincoln didn't show up the first time, I'm like, okay, Stevie, can you see anything? Can you see anything in this list that you might have left off?
Yeah, well, and I think that it's so crucial because a lot of times we assume that we are living into our values, that how we spend our time is actually a reflection of what we value. But I think what we take for granted is that a lot of times we're letting life happen to us.
Yes.
And we're making like we're doing things because people told us that we're really good at it, or
Yeah.
make a decision at all. And it just started, we just woke up one day and this is how it is. And I think that that was the biggest aha for me, that I'd never consciously made the decision that this is how my life was going to be. I kind of just started following a path, and I was very grateful for that path, but I'd never been asked the question before. And I do think that it's also that acknowledgement and awareness that you either are on the right track or maybe something needs to shift is really about that self-reflection.
Yeah, and here's the thing I find out about people's values. Like sometimes people will say faith is one of their key values, many times. And then when we go on to say, how are you really spending your time? And we're going to do this exercise later. They're not spending their time on what they really care about. Like out of my 5 values, I felt like I was really doing well on 4 of them, but the health part wasn't. And WISE has helped me so much this past year. Gina has helped me this past year. Weight Watchers has helped me this past year. But when you say, because to me, I want to be authentic. What you see is what you get, the good, the bad, the ugly. And so if I say health is one of my top values, and trust me, the older you get, the more important your health is, then I need to be aligned my values with my actions and my words, and not just have it be something I say is important. Because I've had a lot of people, a lot of C-suite leaders say to me, well, of course, family is one of my most important things. And yet, when they talk to me about how they're spending their time and decisions they're making on their career, it's not like that. Now, I'm not saying, I understand you guys in the healthcare system are in a crisis mode right now. I understand your families are important, and maybe you can't spend the time. I know you can't spend the time with your loved ones the way you did, but that doesn't mean your actions and values, because those are the peaks and valleys that go through life. But I just think to really be conscious, we said this is consciously connecting with yourself. The first thing you have to know is what you really value. What do you care about? And then the next question I always ask the people that I'm working with is, what are you really passionate about? Okay, and Stevie, wait, you made me think of one thing. When people first do these exercises, for some reason, they think I'm only talking about their professional life.
Always.
It's like, okay, my values. Well, of course, I value success and achievement and financial security and accountability and leadership and all that. I'm like, no, time out. I'm looking at your entire life here. Christ Hospital is doing this for you, the human being, not you just the Christ Hospital employee.
Thank you for saying that, because I think that I know that Christ has done an incredible job rolling out their values and
yes,
all of the great work that they're doing. I think that the shift that I am so impressed and proud of is that inherent in those values are seeing people that work at the Christ Hospital as humans. And
yes,
recognizing that's why we're here today, is that they recognize that great, you're a fantastic employee, like love that. Doesn't matter if you burn out and leave. Like doesn't matter at all, right? What we need to do is see you and everybody on this call as a person and help you understand how you can find better alignment with your values, right? So your professional life is fantastic and it's absolutely a part of who you are, but it does not define you.
right.
And we hear so much, right? Like I'm looking at Gina and I'm looking at like other, practitioners on the call that like there's so much that we put stock in our careers. I was there as a P&G was like more relatable to me than saying I was a human, right? I was a P&G, right? Like P&G first, all other things, because it's so ingrained in who I am, but I completely forgot and lost track of the fact that like, I am a really great sister, right? And like that has nothing, they actually do not care or understand at all about like what Proctor is. And so thank you for saying that, because I meant to say that in the beginning, and this is just such a perfect time to kind of transition into like passion,
Yeah.
A lot of times that's why people are here, is their passion is people. And like,
Well, and Stevie, I think I was maybe in my 50s where I would say, and I didn't announce this at the top of Fifth Third, but it was like Fifth Third is where I worked. It didn't define who I am.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I love the bank. I still love the bank, but it's like, it's where I work. I am a whole person, whether I'm there or whether I'm not there.
Yeah.
And so figuring out what really defined me, first were my values, and then what was I most passionate about? Now, I was still an EVP when I was going through this, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely passionate about development. I am a zealot about, leadership, anything to do with leadership. I believe you asked me a question today of what's going on in the world, and I bet you $1,000 I can tie it back to leadership, without a doubt. But to sit there and think, what are the things that excite me and give me meaning? Well, one thing I know for sure, and I think it's from raising the daughters, but helping young women who are in such complex lives, caregivers, sandwich generations, and men too. But I have to tell you, helping all the young women who are trying to be a wife, to be a mother, to be a daughter, to be a sister, to be a leader, and to take care of other people and to be a good human being is very complex. So what excites me and gives me meaning is helping people, assisting them in being the best version of themselves, whatever they define to be the best version. So I know a lot of you on this call, excitement, what you're passionate about, has got to be about helping others, about giving to others, about having people be well, about having people live fulfilling lives, to be able to achieve their dreams through health and wellness. But I also know there can be other things that you're also passionate about: your families, your faith, your community, giving back to others, your talents that you give to others and stuff. So I think for you to ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What excites you? What gives you meaning? And what is your purpose? If you could accomplish something meaningful in life, and I'd like you to go to the chat room again. If you could accomplish something meaningful in your whole life, your whole personal, professional life, one thing, what would you like it to be?
Just that little question.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, okay.
Accomplish your purpose. Think about your passion. Think about what excites you. Think about what you want your legacy to be. Think about what gives you meaning.
Word, legacy. I love the legacy because here's the thing. I love it, but it's also daunting, right? Because I want to give people permission to also say that, like, it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. I mean, for me, I used to think that for me, catalyzing women and catalyzing the potential of women meant that it had to be this like huge thing. But when I find the most meaning and when I really feel alive is those one-to-one connections, when I can connect the dots that somebody else is like so in their own self with, and I can lift them up and be like, this is what it looks like. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, go. And they feel like they can do anything. I always leave conversations with you, Lauris, saying I could flip a car, like it's not that I'm like, yes. And I think that when we think about like, it could be, your legacy could be being an incredible contributor to the community, or you love saving senior dogs. Like that's such a great, important thing to contribute. Or it could be, I'm the best embroiderer this side of the Mississippi, right? Because like being creative and investing in your craft is crucial, right? And that makes you feel like a sense of purpose that you're contributing to something. So I would be interested to see what other people have to say, because I think that it is very like a big idea.
Yeah. Stevie, can you see some of the comments in the chat room?
I'm using this as a way to push people to put some comments into the chat room.
Okay. Well, one thing, I thought I saw Tiffany in there. Yeah, I don't want this to be so daunting. Okay, so this isn't world peace. This isn't Miss America, and we're not saying I want to solve world peace. You know, I've thought about this a lot. And at the end of the day, I love that. Helping people achieve their goals through sharing my best self. And I would add to that, Janet, and helping them be their best selves. I believe my life is a success by raising two smart, compassionate women and the children that they're raising also. You know, so it can just be helping others, you know, however you define you want your life to be. But it's time to give it some thought, you know, if you haven't, or if you're so burnt out and you're in that sacrifice syndrome, to think those renewing thoughts that we'll talk about on why you're doing this in the first place. Because that sense of mindfulness and hope and reflection can tie you back to what that sense of purpose is for you. And that in itself can be renewing. That in itself can be renewing. So something for you to think about, you know, when you talk about purpose, legacy, meaning, and all those things. But what these exercises help us do, because remember, consciously connecting. In order to be consciously connected, we have to talk about emotional intelligence. Okay, we just have to. Now, some of you might be very aware of emotional intelligence. And I know Christ does things with emotional intelligence. So I'm not going to go into all of that. But what I really want to talk to you about emotional intelligence is it's knowing yourself, and it's managing your emotions, and it's knowing others, and it's managing your relationships. So what that really means is it's all about our self-awareness. It's about our self-management. It's about social awareness, which is the others, the empathy, the organizational savviness part, and it's about the relationships that we value. And so to connect with others, something that all of you do every single day, you have to connect with yourself first, okay? Self-awareness is the single most important behavior of the 14 competencies or so around emotional intelligence, because it starts with you. Okay. Many times when I'm teaching emotional intelligence, people come in and they'll say, wow, I wish my spouse was in this program. Or wow, my teenagers need to hear this. No, this is about you. This is about your self-awareness. And here's what we know for sure. People with a high degree of self-awareness, they know their values and they model them daily. They understand their intentions and they understand their impact. I mean, Stevie, how many times have you heard me say, I'll be coaching someone and they'll say, oh, but Lauris, that wasn't my intention. You know, I have honorable intentions. I have very good intentions. I didn't mean to yell at them. They know they'll go out and have a beer with me later. And I'm like, okay, no, we're not raising a bunch of Popeyes here. This is not about I am who I am. And your intentions and your impact have to be in alignment. Okay, so that's terribly important.
Well, you always say, Laura, your favorite quote is from Maya Angelou, right? That
you're going to steal my thunder.
So I was going to say, no, I want you to make sure, because I think this is the perfect time.
I will.
It's my North Star. So
yes, I'm going to talk about that. But the thing is about knowing their intentions and impact, they also know what self-care they need. So people who are self-aware, and we're going to do this exercise, their mind, their body, their heart, and their spirit. They understand what they need and when they got off kilter. Because I teach this stuff so much, I think about it a lot. And I need to keep practicing it. That's a good thing about teaching. It makes you more aware. And there are days where I get up and I'm saying, okay, I am off kilter. Now, why am I off kilter? And I have to go through and kind of do some self-analysis to figure out, why are you feeling so off kilter that day? And people who are have self-awareness can do that. They're also aware of their feelings. They're aware if they're happy, if they're sad, if they're content, if they're just depleted. They're aware of their feelings, okay? So they know what they're doing. So you have to start with self-awareness, and it's your own self-awareness, okay? Then after you start with your self-awareness, in order to be consciously competent, you have to have emotional self-management. You have to manage those emotions that you're feeling, okay? So people with a high degree of self-management, they're achievement oriented. They're resilient, they're adaptable, they have a positive attitude, and they leverage their emotional self-control. And of all the emotional intelligence competencies next to self-awareness, the one about self-control is so terribly important, okay? Because of the impact that you consciously or subconsciously have on others. And here's what I would tell you. We know with the brain, studying the brain, that emotions are highly contagious, okay? And that means the positive emotions and the negative emotions. In fact, if it's been proven, if you have a horrible day and then you go home and you take it out on the kid or your family, I mean the dog, the kids, the family, the neighbors, or whatever, that emotion of negative toxicity will stay in your body for 36 hours, okay? And some of you are thinking, Lauris, have you seen my life right now? I'm living in a 36 hours right now. Well, we're going to talk about that, because there's some good news is that it doesn't take much for pockets of renewal to be injected in that day to help you get out of the sacrifice and into some renewing moments for yourself, okay? But one thing I want to talk to you about emotional intelligence, about self-control, is that when you're aware, you know you have triggers. Everybody has triggers, okay? It could be politics. It could be religion. It could be community topics. It could be your brother-in-law. Just kidding. It could be a family member, but all it is that gun control, the environment, lots of things get to our emotions. You really need to know where your triggers are. And you need to decide before you get in a situation how you're going to control that before you get in the conversation, okay? So for example, I decided this whole past year, except for with my very close friends, I was not going to discuss politics because I knew it had the probability of raising people's emotions, raising people's blood pressures, and it was going to bring confrontation, and it was going to raise everything up to a level, and I did not want to contribute to that. So now, I'm not complicit. If someone says something that I, vehemently disagree with, I will stand my ground. But I will also stand my ground by saying, you and I don't see things the same way. I have a different point of view. It's not something I want to discuss at this time. Okay? There are just certain things when you're getting together for Thanksgiving or Christmas, well, hopefully you're Zooming together. But when you're doing things like that, you know that there are topics, there are subjects, there are people, and they just get on your nerves. And it could be coworkers. Hopefully it's not your manager and your direct reports, but there are people. And the thing is, you've got to practice that. And I got to tell you, people will say, well, okay, Lauris, it sounds like great, but when I'm in the moment and I'm starting to feel my blood pressure and my face is getting red, and what can I do? One thing, and Stevie's heard me say this like a zillion times, one thing I just tell everybody is pause.
Yeah.
Pause. Hit the pause button, okay? If I know I'm going to have a challenging conversation with a client, with a vendor, with a resource, with anyone, I go into it calm and hitting that pause button, okay? Then I'll tell you, as Stevie said, my favorite Maya Angelou quote is that I've learned that people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I know all of you care about how you make people feel. Okay. I know you care about how they make people feel. And that's another reason for having self-control. Okay. Because the one thing I know for sure, and if I had $1 for every time I said this, I could have retired at 25. But every single person has a story. And I know everybody that walks into your doctor's offices, your clinics, your hospitals, everyone has a story. And you have no idea when you're looking at that person what their story is. None. You know, sometimes I'll be at Kroger's and I'll think, you know, wow, these lines are really long. And then I'll look at the cashiers and they're tired. And I'll look at the people who are bagging the groceries and they're tired. And I try to go out of my way by saying, thank you. Thank you for what you do. Because they don't get thanked a whole lot, like I'm sure you feel that way as well. And everybody has a story. Like all of you on this call right now, I have no idea what you're going through, except for what I think you're going through. But personally, I don't know what you're going through. Okay. And so, you know, Nikki, we've talked about doing later things around empathy and relationships and stuff. And knowing that everybody has a story helps me manage my emotions, because it's like, I don't know what other people are going through. And so I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I want to assume innocence. I want to assume that they did not cut me off in traffic because they looked at me and just thought, I don't like that blonde lady sitting there. I'm going to cut her off. You know, no, maybe they're in a rush to pick up a sick kid at school. I don't know what it is. But I definitely remember I can let people feel upbeat by my interaction with them, upbeat, or I can let them feel beat up. And I want to leave people feeling upbeat, not beat up. The other thing, I
can just build really quick, because I know it's
yeah.
a personal experience this week that I wanted to share with everybody. Is I started working with a new client that I was so excited about. I've been such a huge fan of hers. She's a blogger out of a different state. It was going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting her, she's not at all what I thought she was. I mean, I was like fangirling hard and met her, and she was not a very kind and nice person. And I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt, continuing to be nice, kind, leaning in, was not getting, and I was harboring all of this resentment all of a sudden of like being nice, putting it into the relationship, giving her another chance, and finally had to say, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Kindly and respectfully ended the relationship, even though my ego wanted it to work. And my ego told me that I had to make it work because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't the right thing to do for me. And so walking away from the relationship sometimes, walking away from the conversation sometimes, making a decision to take your ego out of it and taking a step back and making a different decision than maybe you want to do because it's the right thing to do for you in the moment has to be the solution you select. And I
absolutely,
and that just for me, like I said, I'm still learning this, right? I'm like, my initial response was like expletive, like forget it, and like I'm gonna come in hard, right? Because that is I'm a Taurus, that's my inclination. Not a lot of people know that about me unless you're close with me, right? Like I can go, and I really have to go slow and easy and like not bottle it up, but just understand that I had a choice. And I had to make the right choice that was for me, because I have so many other opportunities to like give my energy in a positive manner. And so I think that it's important for us to consider, when are we the best version of ourselves? And like when we're in these bad triggering moments, how you can feel good about how you exit the situation by just giving it a little bit of time and perspective.
Yeah. Well, and when I was coaching, I would always tell people, look, if you're having these, very heated arguments with people that you work with, it's like, you do need to preserve the relationship. It's like the art of influence and negotiations. So some of my favorite things I would tell people, look, do you want to win the battle to lose the war? Yeah. How adamant do you want to be about your point of view? Or do you, sometimes when things got too escalated, I would say, wait a second, we needed to step back. We need to take a time out here a minute. or we need to discuss this at another time. Because I'm not talking about being submissive. I'm not talking about not speaking up, not having your point heard and stuff. But I am saying, if I personally feel my emotions are really starting, something's going to trigger me, I want to remember, am I going to feel like this tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now? You know, I tell people, don't swing at pitches in the dirt. Yeah. There are some people that are just gonna, they're like that little, you know, there was a pillow I saw once that said, raising teenagers are being pecked to death by chickens. And I thought, that's like what people who annoy you are like this on you all day long. And you just think, oh my God, I might shoot them. You know, they're so annoying. And I'm saying, don't swing at pitches in the dirt. Don't take the high road. Don't let him get the best of you. And then my girlfriend taught me this one saying, which I hate it when my girls send it back to me, but I'll ask myself, is it truthful? Is it necessary? And is it thoughtful? Yeah. Okay. Is it truthful? Is it necessary? Is it thoughtful? Sometimes things are truthful and sometimes they're, you know, thoughtful, but I found out, you know, they're not really necessary. It's like some things are just better left not getting the last word and not saying it. So I just want to make sure I can express myself by leaving the other person in that golden rule with dignity and respect and get my point across, but knowing what my triggers are. And I think I was teaching doctors some empathy up at New York Presbyterian Hospital a couple years ago. And we were talking about the time of leaving one patient's room to go to another patient's room. And whether it was the act of washing hands, taking a breath, grabbing a bottled water, taking a sip of coffee, but something that could get you re-centered so that you could refocus where your emotions were, because that next room you're walking into, they might have been waiting all day for you, 2 days for you, and you're the most important person they're going to see that whole day. And so how do you want them to experience you? So being self-aware and then being emotionally self-control are just so important. If you find yourself, here's a clue. If you find yourself saying, I'm sorry a lot, it could be that you need a little bit more self-awareness about your emotions and your feelings and your actions. If you go around saying, I'm sorry all the time. Okay, because that's kind of not an awareness. Any questions on that before I want to talk about a little bit about adaptability and resilience? Any questions on self-awareness or on self-control or self-management we need to talk about?
One thing just to like kind of maybe catalyze conversation is I know that there's 2 triggers for me that if like I'm sitting here right now and I've been noticing I've been holding my breath a lot. Like if you like I've been taking some really deep breaths, like some belly breaths while I'm sitting here, and I can tell that I'm heightened today. You know, and it's like that, again, that self-awareness of like being in your chair and like acknowledging, like, are you clenched or are you like, are you relaxed? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's for me when I know that I have these little pockets and moments of like, okay, I know that sometimes like there is this illusion, like, and I don't want to diminish anybody and please don't be offended, but there is this illusion that like, there are not, there's no time, right? Go, 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 go. It's like constant, right? We call it the scream. That the unhealthiest piece, the unhealthiest thing I could do is validate that today. Mm-hmm. There is always, you have to take moments during your day to be able to have that because you are a safety hazard yourself and to others. And I think that like, because for me, then the second layer to that is when I don't have these moments, the bottle up happens and it explodes anyways. And it's like shrapnel everywhere, right? That's been building up instead of it being thoughtful and directed And I find myself like knowing it's going to happen. And I'm like an observer outside of my body watching it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. Oh, here it goes. And I know I'm doing it. I have the self-awareness to know it's happening, but I just can't control it. I can't cage it. And that's the piece I just want to make sure that I'm not validating to anybody that I don't have the time. Not an excuse. Like it's not right for you. Yeah.
Stevie and Lauris, I
yeah.
was going to share, I've been talking to Stevie about this recently because a few months back, I took the assessment through WISE that includes that Enneagram. And the power of that to dissect my personality has just been so impactful for me. And I get the daily tips now, and they're always like so spot on. Couple weeks, I've just been so stressed because a few things that I've been working on. I've been struggling because of the pandemic, and it pains me so much to have to go in front of the organization and talk about that, this was how that was going to be, but it's not growing like I thought it was going to be. Went back and started looking at my assessment and realizing that there's elements of my stressor that are perfectionism. And when I feel like I am not doing something perfectly, it's catastrophic. It really helped me understand in my brain, I had created this like catastrophic situation when it wasn't catastrophic. I was presenting, here's where we are and here's ways we could fix it. Here's efforts we're going to put in place to make it better. No one was giving me a really hard time about it, but in my brain, I had created this miserable experience, right? So when I'm looking at that part of my personality, when I could then feel like it was starting to happen, or I was starting to go down that path, I could control it more.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was just, I felt like I was making progress and being more self-aware that, okay, like you have to know this about yourself and you need to stay grounded in reality and not let yourself create this, false universe of misery that you're to right now.
Yeah. Well, that's like same thing, Nikki. When I took that with Cloverleaf and stuff, I'm a helper. Doesn't surprise on what I'm doing. But the trouble is, because of helping, when taken to an extent, then I have boundary issues. And when I'm the most anxious is when I've overcommitted in my quest of helping others, and then I'm at risk of my own sacrifice. And so, yeah, all this type of assessments, things your friends have told you, your parents, your spouse, your kids, there's a lot of ways of increasing your self-awareness, and just stopping and, thinking about it. But the other thing I want to talk to you about is adaptability, because people who are adaptable have the ability to adjust to new conditions. And I got to tell you, it's a real advantage in this incredibly highly competitive, world that we're in right now. And it allows a person to cope with the unexpected disturbances or the challenges. The other thing adaptability does, it allows you to recover quickly from difficulties and to spring back. You know how you can see that, and you have friends like that. You have some friends that something really gets them down and they stay down for a very long other period of time. And then other people will kind of spring back. And it's not that it wasn't as serious to them, but they just have that adaptability that they do, and they've built that resilience. And so here's a good thing about adaptability. This is not a personal attribute. This isn't a personality thing. This is a behavior that you can improve, and you can get better at being adaptable. And I think in order to really get better at being adaptable, I believe if you cultivating resilience for yourself, you're much more prepared for all the softballs and the curveballs that get thrown at you in life, if you really cultivate being resilient. And so, people say, how do you cultivate resilience? Well, non-scientifically, but from everything I've experienced, from everything I've coached, from the things that I've read and the people I've worked with, for right now, this time period, I'm going to share with you my top 5 suggestions of cultivating resilience. But the very first one is to be aware of your mindset, to know what your feelings are, your thoughts, your sense of control, your objectivity. to really review what you have that you can control and to be objective. And maybe some things are so out of your control, but you can control your response. You can control your attitude. You can control where you spend your energy. You can control who you spend your time with. Some of these things you have control of. And there are many things that have happened to me that I didn't have control over. I got divorced, and I really didn't want to be divorced, but I ended up being divorced and a single mom raising 2 kids. And so there were some things that were out of my control, but I was going to make the very best of it for these girls. And so there are just things that we've all overcome. There's all things that we've gone through, but how you feel about it in your mindset. Someone used to say to me, if you think you can, you're probably right. And if you think you can't, you're probably right. So what do you think? I like to think positive. I mean, I choose to go through life positive. I am definitely much more Pollyanna and Little Mary Sunshine. I'm very pragmatic. I'm very realistic. I know the incredible things that are going on in the world, but I still choose happiness, and I choose to wear myself in a happy mode when I can. And you do own your mindset. That is your law of personal responsibility. Okay. So I think that's one thing I always tell people, take a look at what you can control, not what you can't control and what is happening to you. The other thing, this to me is really, really important. This is to remember muscle memory. And what I mean by muscle memory is remember all the challenges and the obstacles that you've overcome in your past. I mean, you guys, this ain't our first rodeo, right? I mean, it's very seldom that we come across anything the very first time, except maybe this incredible COVID thing that we're going through. And that's why the learning curve and some things took so long, because it was the first time. But you remember challenges and obstacles that you've overcome in the past. And I'll think to myself, okay, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, and I needed a house to raise my daughter in. Okay, so I remember going through that. I remember overcoming being divorced. I remember when my company was bought and all of us lost our jobs. I remember losing friends to cancer. I mean, I remember health scares. I mean, there are just things that if you live long enough, whether you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, you're going to experience some of those life curveballs that come to you. And so even all the women and the young women that I coach in their 30s, I'll say, what obstacles have you overcome? And I'd like you in the chat room for a second. Write down an obstacle that you've overcome, something that you've learned from. It could be personal, it could be professional, but what's something that you've learned from that's an obstacle? Oh, Stevie, you did you can do hard things with Glennon Doyle and Untamed.
If
Love
anybody
that.
has not, that is recommended reading. If you have not read it or listened to it, it is transformational reading, I would say. It is. I keep a Post-it here next to my workstation about just reminding you that for me, overcoming 2 active shooter situations in cancer, right? Like as a corner of the box hard things, right?
Yes.
But then I think about everyday stuff too. Like I think about, I think it's incredible. I don't think of myself sometimes as an adult. But I think about like moving across the country and not knowing anybody. And I'm like, wow, like when I walk into a room full of people, I do not lately, but when I don't love networking and small talk, I love like really deep connections with people. But when I think about that, I'm like, oh, I do not want to do this. But it's so important for the work that I do. And I always think about that. Like you moved across the country and didn't know a single soul in a city. And like, you can do that again, like every time. So it's always helpful perspective.
Well, I see some of your comments, and having a child who is expectedly born with a heart defect requiring hospitalization and medical care, but good to know, all good today. Navigating a career where your gender is unique to other genders. That's another one. Here's what I know for sure. Um, all of you have had challenges.
Yeah.
Okay. You've all had challenges. And so what I want you to do, it's like the Oprah magazine. I like Oprah's Women magazine because she's very positive for women. And on the back of her magazine, she has what I know for sure. And usually she talks about something that was in the magazine. Well, if I was coaching you all, I would tell you, write on a piece of paper, what do I know for sure at the top of the index page? What do I know for sure? And then I want you to fill that legal page with things that you know for sure about yourself. So I know I'm resilient. I know I'm funny. I know I'm a good mom. I know I'm a good friend. But what do you know for sure about yourself? And I'm telling you, I want you to fill the page. Okay? Because these are things that no one can take away from me. I am a good mom. I know I'm a good friend. You know, I also know I'm a procrastinator. These are things I know for sure about me. I know, Hallmark movies make me cry. I cry from November to Christmas on TV commercials. That's because I'm getting older. It's my mom coming out on me. But what are the things you know for sure? And that's what I mean. When you're faced with a challenge, when you're faced with an obstacle, when you're faced with that speed bump in your life, it might have been the first time you faced with that, but it's not the first time. It's not the first time you've overcome challenges. You've overcome obstacles. You've overcome doing hard things. Okay. And also think about people who've inspired you, whether it's Martin Luther King, whether, it's a politician, whether it's a religious, whether it's your best friend, your sister. Think of people who've inspired me. I think of some of my friends who've gone through cancer in the past 5 years.
Mhm.
Their grace under pressure, under fire, going through chemo was just unbelievable for me to watch. What grace. They had their very bad days, but I'm telling you, their hopefulness, their attitude, their survivor mentality was just inspirational for me to watch. So when you write down things that you know for sure, then you put that in your wallet, put that in your purse, put that with your iPhone, on your laptop, put it someplace.
Post
And
it.
yeah. And then when you're faced with things to do that you might not have ever had to do before, you go back and you think muscle memory. I can do hard things. I can do this.
Mhm.
Okay. And so that's just terribly important. And sometimes I'll say to myself, I've got the courage. I can do hard things, and this too shall pass. Just because I'm in this situation right now does not mean I'm always going to be in this situation. And this too shall pass. That's another way I do self-control, because I'll think to myself, yeah, this too shall pass. Okay. The third thing that I want to talk to you about, besides mindset and muscle memory, is finding your true sense of purpose and meaning. Your true sense of purpose and meaning. And I look at my values. I look at the people who depend on me, whether I'm paying my mortgage, you're developing new vaccines. I reach inside me and find my grit. I reach inside me and find my perseverance to make that difference, to leave that meaning, to leave that legacy, and that legacy might be as simple as making someone's day feel better, having someone see the light at the end of the tunnel, being a light in their day of darkness. That can be my purpose and meaning, to be the light. in someone else's day of darkness. Okay. I think if we have more of that, we'll have more compassion, more love, and more empathy in the world, to be honest with you. And so, when I talked to one of my friends who had really had very scary stage 4 ovarian cancer, and I was talking to her about resilience, she said, knowing what her purpose was to be a survivor, knowing what her meaning was, that her work was undone, that she was working on, really helped give her that purpose to get through and to build her resilience. Okay. The fourth thing I would tell you is gather your support team. Get your tribe around you. Get your people. Go get your peeps. Okay. I don't believe anyone's totally alone. I believe that you have people that care about you, that would walk through fire, hail, windstorms, tornadoes to help you if you ask for help. Excuse me.
I think that this, for me, Lauris, is the single most undervalued and hardest part about it, because it requires you to be vulnerable. I know Nikki and I have talked a lot about this, that sometimes, finding your people and people that think the way that you do, it's not only mourning the loss of the relationships that you maybe thought were really awesome and great. And it doesn't mean that those have to go away, but they always say that you're the average of the 5 people you keep closest to you, right? And positivity breeds positivity, negativity breeds negativity. And I know, coming from a previous employer, toxic work environments are something that I, now being outside of it, acknowledge my role in creating that toxic work environment. And I thought I was a victim, right? And I would feed into the negativity and I would add to it. And like, these people are my best friends. Like, they're still my good friends, right? And I keep them close, but our relationship is so much healthier and different now that I'm out. And I think that it's just really important to consider those people that you keep in the diet. What do they always say? Diet is not just about the food that you eat, right? It's the emotions that you're ingesting every day and the conversations you're having. And you have to determine if you're okay with the level of conversation that you're having. Because if a lot of that's about your coworker or all the bad things that are happening in your life, then like, it's just going to perpetuate itself. But if you're having conversations about hopes and dreams and vision, and you're surrounded by other people doing the work, gosh, it really lets you level up your game. And I think that that's, for me, with WISE, has been why we've created a community of like-minded people, because finding those people can be very, very difficult. Sometimes it is like a needle in a haystack. Sometimes we're trying to make it easier for people that are all doing the work to be able to find other people to really build into each other.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, everybody needs a tribe around them. I would rather have 1 or 2 good friends than 10 acquaintances, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to make a real generalization here, so excuse me on this, but all the men I've coached, the majority of the men I've coached, I've always been surprised that they don't have as many friends as I thought they might, for as far along sometimes and as successful as they were in their careers. Okay. And I always encourage them, whether it's a brother, a brother-in-law, a sibling, a best friend from college, someone that you work with, but to nourish 1 or 2 relationships, to nourish them. The people that you could call at 2:00 in the morning, those type of people. I know, raising my daughters as a single mom, my mom was a school teacher. My mom took my daughters to the pediatrician more often than I did, because it was always a UDF ice cream cone afterwards. No matter what ailed you, a milkshake or an ice cream cone from UDF was the answer. And so, I just remember thinking of all the people along my career, professional mentors, professional professors, professional teachers, who saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself, are the people, those, whether it's a person, a coach, a manager at work, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a best friend, someone at your church, someone in your community group. But gather your support team, your church for sure. Gather your support team and know who your support team is, especially when you don't need them as much, so that you know and that you cultivate those resources. You know I'm proud to say I'm on many people's tribes of my close-knit girlfriends, because we have grown up, raised our girls, been divorced, gone through cancer, been widowed together, and that cemented that bond. But look at others for inspiration, and look at others for motivation also, to really help you gather your support team, because I don't think anyone in life has really ever accomplished anything significant on their own without someone helping them along the way, okay? And so when you're trying to build up resilience and adaptability and renewal, that is not the time to be egocentric and say, well, I don't need anybody, I can do this by myself. It's the time, like Stevie, when she has conversations with me, she'll say, okay, I just got to be really vulnerable here with you. And I'm like, as if I could stop you, to Stevie. But it's like, it's be that vulnerability. But number 4 is gather your support team. Yeah. And then number 5 is visualize success or a positive future image. I mean, there are statistics where they have taken basketball teams and had them practice every day for a week, and basketball teams who have visualized practicing and stuff. And let me just tell you, I know you won't believe me, but the results aren't that different. Really, when you look at the huge athletes that are out there, they picture success. You know, they picture that hoop, they picture that field goal, they picture that hockey puck. I mean, they picture over and over and over in their mind success. So I think to learn from the athletes, to set your milestones, set your goals, set your action steps, build optimism by celebrating small wins. So many times in business, it would drive me just crazy, because like the only way we could celebrate was if we made our numbers at the end of the year. Okay, I got to tell you something. If you don't celebrate but once a year, what possibly is going to drive commitment of your workforce and fuel their tank, put gas in their car to get them to that finish line? I believe, and Jim Kouzes and Barry Postner in the Leadership Challenge would tell you, celebrate small wins. Small wins for me was losing the first 5 pounds. Okay, that might not be anything on anybody else's radar, but something I haven't done in a long time, and I was celebrating 5 wins. Woohoo! Okay, 5 pounds. So you build optimism, you build perseverance, you build that I can do that by setting baby steps and by making those small goals. So celebrate a project, celebrate the health of a patient for that day, celebrate that week, celebrate that hour, celebrate those small wins. And then also, I got to tell you, I think positive self-talk is terribly important. I mean, even today, sometimes I'll go to teach a class and I'll just say, oh gosh, I hope they learn a lot today, or I hope this, they're paying attention or whatever. And then I'll say to myself, girl, you got this. It's like, you're passionate about this. You know this stuff. You're going to deliver it to them and everything. And I think positive self-talk, if you don't believe you can't do it, then you probably can't do it. But at least if you believe you can do it, you got a 50-50 chance.
I think that what if is so powerful. Like specific, it's like, what if and possibility are so powerful and crucial. But it's important for us to not think about the 1,000 things that could go wrong, right? There are people's jobs that are in risk management. That's obviously your job. Okay. And for
Yeah.
those people, I'm incredibly thankful, because you don't want me in that job, because my job is to think about, but what's the one reason why it would work? Or what's the one reason
Yeah.
why, and really kind of think bigger. I think that, Loris, in terms of like celebrating those small milestones and wins too, I also want to push people to consider like their dream and their goal, and like continue to actually think about, even a step further. Because
Mhm.
I find that women, and I'm sure you found this way too, through your coaching, is that I feel that a lot of women's dreams are very limiting because of like
Yes.
the situation that they're in, right? They feel so suffocated and stuck that they get to a place, and I know I felt this way, that I reached my goal at a young age, and then I felt like I had a midlife crisis. I was like, this can't be it. I've achieved this already.
Is that all there is?
Well, there is. Like, I work like a ridiculous number of hours and then come home and eat like crap, and like don't get to work out, but like at least I got that like attaboy, and like that's not what I'm living for. And I think that if you think about those little milestones and wins allow for you to be refueled, but you
Yeah.
have to have that end goal in mind to know what you're working towards, and know that
Yes.
it's for you, right? In alignment with your values, and
Yeah.
making sure that it is big enough, really challenging yourself. So that way, when you do achieve it, you actually really do feel like it's given you that sense of purpose and drive that you were looking for.
Yeah. And Stevie, I know you're thinking ahead a lot of the conversations I've had with you and Wells and Wise Wellness on the ideal self versus your real self.
Yeah.
We can't get into all today, but visualizing success and picturing that positive future is terribly important for your mindset and for you to really believe that you can do it. So I just think the mindset, the muscle memory, finding your sense of purpose, your meaning, gathering your support team, and visualizing success and celebrating those small wins and giving yourself some grace and patience. Grace and patience. It was not always pretty, I'm sure, watching me grow up and not always watching me, try to become a leader and all those type of things. But, it's never pretty the first time someone rides a bike. No one ever says, do it right the first time. This isn't about doing it right the first time. This is just celebrating about wins along the way. Okay. And here's what I can tell you. When you know your values, your purpose, you're self-aware, you have self-control, you practice being adaptable and resilient, you're not only connected with yourself, but you are mentally, physically, and compassionately ready to meet the needs of others. Okay? Because here's what we know. When you're incredibly stressed and sacrificing, and your brain shuts down. When your teenagers don't think they can hear you, they literally cannot hear you. Okay? They're not listening to you. They can't hear you. It is Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah. That's literally what's coming through and stuff. And you shut down creatively, you shut down intellectually, and that's why in the fight or flight syndrome, all the muscles, our large muscles took everything. It left our brains and it went to the large muscles so that we could fight or flight, we could run out. And so when you get in this stressful, critical position, you're not thinking clearly. You're not thinking rationally. You're not even really yourself. And so it's terribly important for you to think about your mind, your body, your heart, and your spirit. And here's something I'd like to consider. I'm gonna send this to Nikki, and Nikki is gonna put this exercise out on the employee portal, I believe, Nikki, for you to be able to do after this little webinar today. But I'd like you to do something with me right now. So humor me right now, and take a piece of paper out, and I'd like you to draw a circle in the piece of paper. Okay, so draw a circle, and in the circle, draw a line down in the middle to cut in half, and then draw a line across it. So now you've got 4 quarters. Okay, a circle, line down, line across. Okay, And then mark those 4 components, these words. 1 is marked mind, M-I-N-D, mind, body, heart, and spirit. Your mind, your body, your heart, and your spirit. And here's the exercise. I'd like you to think about the various activities, what you do for yourself when it comes to your mind, your body, your heart, and your spirit. What are some of the activities you do? For example, body examples could be things like exercise, nutrition, rest, sleep, energy. Your mind examples could be things like life goals, resilience, motivation, learning, challenges, achievement. Your spirit examples could be well-being, worship, nature, meditation, mindfulness. And your heart examples could be things like your relationships, your positivity, your values, your compassion, people you love, people that fill you with love. And when you're writing down the activities that you currently engage in these 4 categories, reflect on how beneficial these categories are to you. So think about that a minute. You write down what you're doing in them. And you might say to yourself, wow, I'm doing a lot in 1 or 2, and I'm not doing much in 3 or 4. At the end, what I'd like you to do is write some notes, star something, circle it. What are some things you would change if you could? Now, I'm not talking about just seeing and drinking wine with your best friend or playing hoops with them out on the playground, because I am thinking about our environment right now. But, you know, what are some things that you could do, you could change if you could? Okay. And I'd love to see or have anybody just start speaking. And, you know, Stevie, Gina, Nikki, put some of you guys on the spot, but maybe you could share one thing that you reflected on that you noticed, and one thing, you know, maybe one thing you'd like to change.
I can go first. So for me, you know, I know that I'm my best version of myself when I run every day. And I really gave up running for a long time because I was just it was the first thing to go. It's the thing that gets my body moving, and that catalyzes my spirit, kind of this mindfulness. I don't think about anything else when I'm running. I just think about running and not in my breathing. It keeps my mind, but it allows for me to also, I think, once I'm settled and I'm not clouded, it allows for my heart to kind of like be ready and available to give, to interact and build relationships. But it's so interesting that I know that there's some people that are body first, heart first, mind first. You know, there's people that tend to like instinctually their personalities. There's therapies around this, right? But for me, it's so important because I would normally think I'm a mind first person, but I think I'm actually a body first, because when that's out of whack, everything else is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gina, how about you or Nikki?
Well, one thing that I think a lot of us are guilty of, especially lately, is that our brains are moving so much faster than our bodies at times. And I've found, and I hear this from friends and family, that it's hard to just turn off all of the thoughts, all of the things,
Mhm.
and being mindful and being present in the moment is something that requires effort and attention and discipline. And a lot of us aren't doing that, myself included, because we're constantly thinking about all of the things that need to be done later, or that we haven't accomplished already, or not being able to calm ourselves in time to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And so I think that this particular exercise has reminded me that there's discipline that's required to do these things, and to pay attention to the areas where we need to do better to be better.
Yeah,
And
mine's actually the same. I have lately been even researching like meditation apps and looking at exercises that I want to start implementing daily to start my day. And I'm reading about all these things, benefits for starting your day, doing all of these things. And then
Gratitude.
I never do them for many days in a row. It's like, I just do it and then it kind of just fades away. And then I'm like, oh, I really should do that. So I need to just make it an exercise and part of a daily routine and stick to it and just make sure that I'm tracking it day by day. And that's, I think, probably the biggest opportunity I have on my 4 buckets.
Yeah. The mindfulness thing, Jean and Nikki and Stevie, it's just so fascinating because we all struggle with that. I mean, mindfulness is being present, right? It's sort of an inner outer body experience, and you are present in the moment. It's like when I walk the dogs, I never take music and never take my cell phone with me because I want to walk the dogs. But I have to consciously say to myself, I'm not taking anything with me. And I think with technology, while it has brought incredible, wonderful things, it is really challenging from a mindfulness standpoint. Nikki, I will tell you one thing. I have been a member of Headspace is an app.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that all the time. And this guy's British accent, you can do male or female. I like his lower voice. And my little monkey mind, I never meditated before, 3 or 4 years ago. And my monkey mind, I thought, oh my God, I'll never be able to stop thinking long enough to meditate. But it's not about the art of perfection. Your mind will wander, you bring it back to your breath. Your mind will wander, you bring it back to the breath. Well, now I've had so much on my mind lately due to my boundary issues that I go to bed at night listening to Calm app. And the Calm app has all these sleep stories and all these sounds and all these. Kate Winslet, was from Titanic, was talking. I found myself, Stevie, you'll crack up, listening to a Thomas the Train sleep story last night because I love her as an actress and I wanted to hear her voice. Okay.
It's amazing.
But I go to sleep now and I'll put on one of these sleep stories, or the sound of rain or the brook or whatever. And it just calms my monkey mind down and I can then, visit with that. But the thing is about this exercise, that's the first part. The first part is sort of to have an awareness of where you currently are. Okay? So now part 2 is either a different pen or a different circle. It's your choice. Consider the activities in which you would ideally be engaged in for you to achieve your balanced life. Okay? So, and here's some questions that you can reflect on. So, what do you want more of in your life? And what do you want less of? So, what do you want more of? And what do you want less of? Do you need to simplify or intensify some things? What skills, knowledge, learning, or change in limiting beliefs you have will help you progress towards the achievement of greater balance? And the other thing is, you guys, what must you give up or sacrifice or eliminate or let go in order to achieve the balance you want? I think, Stevie, you've heard me say that to you like 100 times.
This week, 100 times this week.
Yeah, because look, you guys, it isn't just all additive. You know, I decided as a working mom growing up that no one ever died of dust bunnies in my house. Okay. That I was not going to have kitchen tile that everybody could eat off of, because that was not as important to me as going to a football game and watching my daughter, or going to a ballet recital or gymnastics. It just wasn't. And something I saw in the comments earlier, you know, how can we pick just one thing? Because women think they have to do everything. Yeah, that's where you need to think about what your values are and what's really important, and make your choices. Okay. Because the other thing about doing this exercise is that you might come up with, well, there's 5 things. I need church. I need to be a better friend. I need to be a better mother. I need to be a better partner. No, no. This is not an exercise to give you additional stress. This is an exercise to say, of your mind, your heart, your body, your spirit, 2 things. 1 thing, 2 baby steps. What are 2 baby steps that you can do? I'll tell you what mine was for April when Shelby first came home from Chicago and spent the month of April with me. Mine was drinking water. I don't drink enough water. And she was very cognizant. I said, you help me make sure I'm drinking enough water all the time. And the other thing, Nikki, I was thinking of you. We started a thing where every morning, the first things we said to each other, well, what were 3 things we are grateful for? That's it. Start my morning on the positive. What are 3 things that I'm grateful for every single morning? Or when you say your prayers at night, 3 things that you're grateful for. You know, and for spirit, I was inconsistent saying my prayers sometimes, and I really noticed that. And so if I'm grateful in the morning and I say my prayers at night, I found out I'm a simple person, but I found out it set me up in a much better mindset to start my day and to finish my day. Okay.
Well, I think that I love that you just said that, because you said you're a simple person. Okay. We're all actually just humans, right? There's that saying that like, we're just a house plant with more complicated emotions. Like, we need some very bare bones things to kind of get ourselves into a good space. And there's a theory called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, you know, the whole concept of you really you need air, shelter, water, food, and then there's the next layer is safety and security. So we're not necessarily even talking about like self-actualization at this point, like who to be or not to be. Like, we're not there. We're like, hey, basics, let's get down to drinking water, getting some sunshine on our face, and moving our bodies. And I think that there's other things that even that comes before safety and security, in terms of job security, or like what's going on with COVID-19, like all of that. Actually, if your needs aren't met at that basic level, you can't even get to that next level. And I think that's just like, we all are basic, like we're all humans in the same box.
And that's why, Stevie, just relationships. I just want to stress the value of relationships. When I read that book, The Blue Zones, where it talks about why the people live the longest and what do. They eat Mediterranean diets, they rest, they drink a nice glass of red wine every day, and they talk and they see people, they connect. The thing of relationships. And that's why some of the people, you know, I've worried about some of these young people that I'm coaching that are in the high rises in Chicago and Nashville, and families aren't in the same cities that they live, and they can't see their friends and they can't go out. The whole thing of loneliness, you know, is real. The whole mental health part of anxiety and depression is real, and the relationship part. So I would just tell you, on your mind, your body, your heart, and your spirit, you know, take a look at those things and think, you know, is it connecting with a friend? A phone call is the best thing that I can do for my mind, for my heart, for my compassion. Is it making sure that my kids know every night, you know, I read a book to them before they go to bed every night, so I've got that love connection with them? Is it calling a friend? Is it dropping off food at the free store? What can I do, 1 or 2 things to do to make me feel more in balance when the world is out of balance? What can you do? So that leads me to my final thing I want to talk to you guys about today, and that's renewal. You know, we talked about adaptability and resilience, but the pressure that everyone is under right now, you have to find moments of renewal. And let me tell you what renewal is not. Renewal is not working 60-hour week and then saying, I'm going to cram it all in on Saturday or Sunday. Okay, that scientifically is proven that does not work. Renewal is not, I'm going to work 50 hours, 60 hours a week for 50 weeks a year, and then I'm going to renew on vacation. That is not the renewal I'm talking about either. Okay, you can't cram renewal. Okay, people, let me just be clear to you on that. When you're sacrificed and you're stressed, your body and your spirit needs renewal. And when I'm talking renewal, I'm talking more than just self-care. Okay, I believe that self-care is getting enough rest. It is nutrition. It is eating right. It is taking care of yourself, getting fresh air, walking in nature. I believe all those things, however you define self-care. But renewal, let me tell you what happens when you're stressed. Your blood pressure goes up. Your brain literally shuts down from learning, from being flexible. You're less healthy. Your immune system takes a dive when you are so stressed. You feel anxious, nervous, depressed. You're also perceiving negative threats to you, whether they're valid or not, because you go into a negative mindset. Okay. Okay, so Lauris, that's the bad news. What's the good news? The good news is we know to beat sacrifice and stress syndrome, mindfulness, hope, compassion, fun, laughter, nature, joy, that's the good news. Those are all things that help beat stress, okay? When you have a good belly laugh, when you watch a YouTube video, when you watch America's Funniest Videos, when you hear a funny joke, when you're compassionately helping someone else, you are helping yourself at the same time. I'm not a very good cook. My kids will tell you that, but I'm trying to be a better cook. But I have mastered organic vegetable soup and good turkey chili. And my next door neighbor, Joe, thinks I make the world's best vegetable soup. So now Joe gets vegetable soup every month in the wintertime, whether he wants it or not, because I just need to hear how good my soup is. So it's a double compassionate. It works for Joe and it works for me. But here's the thing that I heard yesterday. I was on a coaching development day up at Case Western with a couple of my favorite professors, and they have a new study coming out in a psychology book. And what they have found out is the activities and the variety of what you do for renewal is most important. So for example, Stevie, I'll use you as an example. When you say, I want to renew, and I renew by running, I believe you, but here's what I would caution you on. When you run and you run and you run, and you're a runner like 4 or 5 days a week, or you're an exerciser and the people say, I work out, I work out, I work out. That's what I do for renewal. What ends up happening, it can lose its magic for renewing. It ends up being a part of your day, or it ends up being a habit, and it doesn't give you the renewal factor that you need. And so what these researchers just found out is that the variety of renewing is very important. So it could be when you read that book to Lincoln, that's renewing. When you cook dinner with Patrick, that's renewing. When you talk to a girlfriend, that's renewing. And the second thing that they discovered that I thought was really good news for all of us is that you can be renewed in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, we're not talking an hour here. We're not talking meditation for, an hour. We're not talking doing yoga. We're not talking walking through my favorite Alt Park for an hour. A 10-minute break. So like these Zoom meetings, don't give yourself, give yourself grace of 10 minutes in between. Give yourself that time to stand up in a meeting. I was coaching someone the other day and she goes, hey, let's stand up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm all about that. So we stand up and finish our Zoom meeting, And so no matter how you define renewal, no matter what it is for you, I will tell you one thing I learned also, how renewing petting a dog or a cat can be. And that serotonin, that Oxycontin, that good stuff in your brain by petting another animal. And that's why the shelters are empty after COVID, because so many people at home have rescued animals, praise Lord, on that, which is great. But petting a dog, petting an animal, playing with a small child, laughter, all that stuff is terribly renewing. So what I learned yesterday on this call that I was fascinated by is that number one, variety is key. Variety, not just one thing, but doing different things for short periods of time. And if you're a master at something, like we had an Air Force commander on who she was a black belt. If you master something like working out, you even have to do that for a shorter period of time to get the renewal spirit, is if you master it. So for her doing like I might have to do 15 minutes of Tai Chi, she can do 2, because in 2 minutes, she gets the same physical high and mental high that would take me 10 to 15 minutes to do it. So think about that. If you've already mastered things that you renew, then do other things that you haven't mastered, and that variety really helps. That makes sense, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's so funny because I think that part of the reason why I got out of my running is because I wasn't feeling that fulfillment. I wasn't getting anything out of it. It felt like kind of a wasted amount of time. And so I love the idea of variety. I'll tell you one thing that I know I've heard a lot of people, but like a hug for me, it fills me. And so, like I said, my dog is loving this because my dog is getting like all of the attention and all the snuggles during this time. But I do think that there are a lot of people that are missing that, like that human connection and touch.
Just the touch.
I know.
The human touch and the human connection. You're a doctor, you're walking in to touch someone's arm or leg, says, I see you, I care about you. I know you, I see you, you're present, and but yeah, Stevie, I got to tell you, for all the people like you that talk about running, or all the people that say, if I want to be renewed, I go do an hour workout. Well, you're getting diminishing returns after a while. You could be getting diminishing returns after a while because it's so habitual, and that it's really kind of a day of your life, and it's not something that's so renewing to you anymore.
Well, and I think that we talk a lot about dopamine, right? And how you talk about consistency, persistency, but artistry, right? Like that's the thing that when you're talking about building habits and brands, like injecting that newness, that's why so many of us, we gravitate towards new. It's a human behavior, right? We're curious. It looks familiar enough that it won't be dangerous, but it's new enough that like it brings us that new, like that we're alive. And I wonder, that's part of with what I'm going to take this just from a data standpoint, from a wise perspective. Like it's a lot of times just like finding new ways to break up the routine going into these winter months. I think that you and I are both very concerned about society as a whole, right?
Mental wellness
and trying to find ways that when it's cold and it's dark and it's gloomy and around the holidays, there's a lot of pressure. We're already worried about it, right? And so how can we make sure that as a community, we're showing up and sharing our gifts? I think we're inherently curious creatures, and being curious itself in a very safe way can allow for us to, I think, really like feel that moment of rejuvenation. And it's conversations like this that I know I learned something new every time that we have people engage.
Well, and Stevie, you were mentioning the holidays. If there was ever a year to simplify, this is it. Okay. If there was ever a year to simplify. And, the idea of writing a handwritten note to the people, on what they mean to you.
Yeah.
Letting people know how much you care and love and what they mean to you can be the greatest gift, and keep things simple. We put the pressures and the expectations on ourselves by watching Instagram too much, by watching TV, by reading too many things on what we think we should do versus what we really should do for ourselves and for our loved ones. And so I just think it's really neat to find out, though. This paper will be out. I'll share more with you because they have an assessment that we all took, and we all put down all the activities we did, but then we took down the variety of the activities that we did. And through this magic, we found out how stressed we actually were and which activities were most important. And the variety was just amazing to me. So everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody has 5 minutes. Yes. Okay, everybody can take a sip of my favorite herbal mint peppermint tea. Everybody can drink a glass of water. Take a walk outside for 5 minutes. Call a friend up. Do something, or just be still. Nikki, get that mindfulness app and listen to that great guy's British thing, because what I like is that he guides you through it. So there's not all these pauses where your mind thinks, okay, what am I supposed to be thinking now? He guides you through mindful meditations. And remember, you guys, it is a journey. It's not a destination. It is a journey, not a destination. And how you get there matters less than who you get there with and the impact you've had on the people that you go along the way with your journey. So I just want to leave you with a quote that Shelby told me when she was 8 years old that just stuck with me forever. She said, "Mom, life is like a roller coaster. You just got to hang on and scream like crazy." And I remember thinking, you're right. There's highs that you hang on to the highs. There's lows that you scream like crazy and stuff. But what I do is that I wish you all joyful outbursts on the highs. And I want you to collect your friends, your tribe, your family, and your friends, and people to support you in the valleys. And I want you to leave here believing in yourself, trusting yourself, and loving yourself. Okay, so thank you, Nikki, for having me here today.
Oh my gosh, this has been wonderful. Thank you, Stevie, and for Lauris, and for everyone that joined today. We are recording this, so I'm going to ask marketing to put this on Mitch, and please help spread the word. This will be available to all Christ Hospital employees to benefit from. I just think it's perfect timing to provide a benefit like this. So thank you, Lauris. And we have news from WISE. WISE is now offering free membership. Stevie, if you want to provide the information on the call to action on that one.
So as you know, we started this relationship. We were going to offer free membership to Christ Hospital employees through the end of 2020. Well, now we really looked at the state of where everyone is, and we felt like it is our duty to serve this community in a bigger way. And so we've announced that we are offering base level memberships, our reflection level membership, to everyone for no cost. And what that looks like is access to weekly events, access to tools, resources, access to experts like Lauris, and like nutritionists, mental health experts, career coaches, anything that you can think of on the 8 pillars of whole self wellness. We are here to support and guide you along that journey. There is a specific Christ Hospital employee portal that has curated content for you as a healthcare professional. We know that sometimes resiliency means something a little different to healthcare professionals during this time than it does to the general population. And so through that partnership, you can go to wisewellnessguild.com/Christ employee portal, Christ-employee-portal, and you can check it out there. This video will also be available there along with other resources and tools. Make sure that you engage with the tools that are available to you as a member. Nikki talked a little bit about Cloverleaf. And Cloverleaf is an incredible resource that you can get access to a lot of self-awareness tools like Enneagram. Enneagram teaches you all about your behaviors, your motivators, helps you understand more about not just the things that you do, but why you do them, and allows for you to, gets you, instead of boxing you in, it allows for you to see your way out of the box, and allows for you to understand how to take control and charge of some of the things that motivate you in order to catalyze your potential. I would say that during this time, the health and well-being of healthcare providers to Wise Wellness Guild is of the utmost importance, and it has always been since it's the birth of it. My journey with the adoption of my son really highlighted the need for the health and wellness of healthcare professionals, seeing the work that you do every day. It is just so crucial to me that you are cared and loved for as much as anyone else that is afforded the privilege to stay at home. And so we will continue at Wise Wellness Guild to support you in any way that we can. My door is always open. We have a team of experts that are here to support you through incredible opportunities like this, but even beyond that, for you to connect with non-healthcare professionals through our variety of different events throughout the course of the month. We just really encourage for you to engage. If you have any needs, please reach out, let us know. Thank you so much for your time and engagement today. I cannot, I know for me even, like, I'm feeling emotional today, and I did not know, like, leading this conversation, I think that it just allows for me to really see the power that when you get people together to have a vulnerable conversation about what's happening in the world, I think that it allows for us to take that back and understand how we can really drive change. And so I look forward to seeing many of you at our next events, and look forward to being able to continue to serve you ongoing. So have a great one. Be wise and well. Get outside. Drink water.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.